The first time my sister said my name out loud in years, it didn't sound like love. It sounded like fear. I was standing behind the glass doors of the venue with a catering badge clipped to my blazer. A tray of champagne flutes balanced on my palm like I belonged there. I didn't. Not to them. But tonight I did. Inside, the ballroom was glowing, gold uplighting, white roses, soft strings drifting through speakers hidden in the walls. The kind of event my family liked. The kind where their smiles looked expensive and their apologies were always off menu. A giant LED screen behind the stage looped a slideshow of the queens of community leadership. There she was. My sister Marissa. Front and center. A flawless headshot. Perfect hair. Perfect teeth. A title beneath it. Marissa Caldwell, keynote speaker. Of course she was. She'd always been good at being seen. I had been good at disappearing. It started as a joke between my friend Layla and me weeks ago. The kind of joke you make when the pain has nowhere else to go. Imagine, Layla had said, rummaging through paperwork in her tiny office, if you just showed up, like a ghost with a PowerPoint. We laughed. And then we didn't. Because the truth was, I had something better than a PowerPoint. I had receipts. The stage lights brightened. The MC tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, the woman who has done more for our youth and our city than anyone in this room, Marissa Caldwell. Applause detonated like fireworks. Marissa walked out like she'd been born in spotlight. She wore white. Always white. Like a saint. Like she didn't have hands that had shoved me out of the family the way you toss a dead plant off a balcony. I watched from the edge of the room. The tray steady, my pulse not. She smiled at the crowd, took the podium, and began to speak. Tonight, she said, voice smooth as ice champagne, is about community. About forgiveness. About family. I almost choked. Family. That word hit me like a flashback, like the slammed door in my face, the unread messages, the holidays where my plate was never set, the funerals where no one told me, the birthdays that passed like I had never been born, cut off for years, quietly, neatly, like erasing pencil from paper. Marissa continued, there are people in this world who carry pain silently. Oh, you have no idea, I thought. And there are people who choose to heal. She was about to lift her hands, do her signature humble gesture, when the LED screen behind her glitched. Just once. A quick blink. No one noticed except me, because I'd paid for that blink. Then it happened again. Another flicker. A stutter of pixels. Marissa's smile twitched. Her eyes shifted back for half a second. And then the entire screen went black. A hush rolled over the ballroom. The MC leaned forward, confused. A technician near the stage started moving. Marissa laughed lightly into the mic. Looks like even technology wants a dramatic pause. The room chuckled. Of course it did. They loved her charm. Then the screen lit up again. Not with her headshot. Not with a slideshow. With a single line of text, white against black, huge enough to swallow the room. Hello, Marissa. The laughter died. Every head turned. Marissa froze with her hands on the podium like it was the only solid thing left in her universe. She leaned toward the screen, blinking as if she could erase the words with disbelief. Someone whispered, "Is this part of the program?" The next line appeared, slow, deliberate, like a finger tapping the glass. You cut me off for years. A ripple moved through the crowd. Confusion first, then curiosity. Marissa's face drained so quickly it was almost impressive. My father, seated at the front table, sat up straighter. His eyes narrowed like he was about to correct someone's grammar. My mother's hand went to her chest in that dramatic way she'd practiced over decades. Always the victim, even when she was holding the knife. Marissa's voice cracked into the microphone. Excuse me, can we? She looked to the side where the event coordinator stood. But the coordinator looked panicked. Because she knew. Layla hadn't just helped me. Layla was the event coordinator. And Layla had her arms folded, watching the screen like she was enjoying a movie. Marissa cleared her throat. There seems to be some sort of hack. No. I thought. Not a hack. A delivery. The next slide appeared. A photograph. A family Christmas table. Everyone smiling. Everyone in matching pajamas. Everyone except me. My absence wasn't an accident. It was a decision. My father's jaw tightened. My mother's lips parted. And then, like the universe had decided to finally speak in my language, the screen displayed the message that made the room inhale like one organism. They didn't just forget me. They replaced me. A wave of murmurs spread. Heads turned toward the front table. Marissa grabbed the mic with both hands now. "That is enough," she snapped, voice losing its polish. "Turn it off. Turn it off right now." The technician rushed to the side of the stage. Layla stepped in front of him. She smiled and shook her head. Marissa's eyes widened. Her gaze whipped across the room, scanning faces like she was drowning and looking for a raft. Then she saw me. Not all at once. First a squint, then recognition, then disbelief. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I simply set the tray down on a passing table like the night was perfectly normal. And I walked forward. The room split instinctively, like people do when they sense something real is about to happen. My heels clicked on polished floor. My heartbeat stayed steady, because this wasn't anger anymore. Anger burns fast. This was something colder. Something patient. Marissa's mouth opened. Closed. She leaned toward the microphone again, but the words didn't come. I stopped at the edge of the stage and looked up at her. She looked down at me like she was seeing a ghost. And maybe she was. Because the version of me they'd exiled, the soft one, the pleading one, the please just tell me what I did wrong one, had died years ago. I could feel every eye in the room pinning me in place, waiting for me to declare myself. So I did. I lifted my chin and spoke. Quietly, not into the microphone because I didn't need it. "My name is Sienna Caldwell," I said. The name hit the room like a dropped glass. My father's face went slack for half a second, as if his brain refused to accept that the daughter he'd erased was standing 5 feet away. My mother's breath came out in a sharp, offended sound. As if my existence was a personal attack. Marissa swallowed hard. "Sienna," she whispered, and it wasn't affection. It was calculation. Because even now, in front of all these people, she was doing what she always did, searching for the angle. "Sweetheart." My mother called, voice syrupy, already trying to rewrite history. "What are you doing here?" "Sweetheart." She hadn't called me that since the day she told me I wasn't welcome at her house anymore. I didn't answer her. I looked up at Marissa. "You made them believe I deserved it," I said. Marissa flinched. "I don't know what you think you're doing," she hissed softly through her smile, still trying to keep up the performance. "But you can't do this here." "Oh," I said and let a little humor slip in, just enough to sting. "You mean, at your forgiveness speech?" A few people snorted, quickly covered it with coughs. Marissa's eyes flashed. My father stood abruptly, chair scraping. "Sienna," he said like a warning. "Stop this. Stop this." As if I was the problem. As if the years of silence were nothing. As if the crime was my presence, not their absence. I glanced at him. And that's when the screen changed again. A new line appeared. "Let's start with why they cut me off." The room went quiet enough to hear the air conditioning hum. Marissa's hands trembled on the podium. My mother whispered, "Oh God." My father's face turned a shade darker. I looked up at the screen, and even though I knew exactly what was coming, my stomach tightened. Because revenge isn't painless. Not when you're tearing open the exact wound you spent years trying to stitch shut. But I had decided something a long time ago. If they wanted me to disappear quietly, then my return would be loud. The screen displayed a date. March 18th, 5 years ago. And then a headline-style caption beneath it. "The lie that changed everything." Marissa's voice cracked. "Sienna, please. Please." That word sounded strange coming from her mouth. She leaned down toward me, off mic, eyes wild. "I can fix this," she whispered urgently. "Whatever you think happened, I can fix it." I held her gaze. "You already fixed it," I said softly. "You fixed it so well nobody even asked where I went." Her eyes filled, not with tears, with panic. Because she knew. She knew what was on that screen next. She knew what I had dug up. What I had saved. What I had waited to use until the moment it would hurt the most. The LED screen flickered once more. Then the next slide loaded. A voicemail transcript. Her voice. Her words. In big, unforgiving text across the screen. And before it could even finish displaying, Marissa screamed. Not a cute little gasp. A real sound. Raw. Human. The sound of someone watching the truth walk into the room and lock the doors behind it. The crowd erupted into overlapping questions. What is that? Is that her? Wait, what's going on? My mother's knees buckled into her chair. My father looked like his spine had been unplugged. Marissa stumbled back from the podium like she'd been slapped. I didn't move. I just stared at her, and for the first time in years, I felt something loosen inside my chest. Not relief. Not joy. Just the quiet satisfaction of balance being restored. Because tonight wasn't about my sister's speech. It was about my silence. And how I finally decided to weaponize it. I lifted my eyes to the crowd. And in a calm voice that carried farther than any microphone, I said, Group chats buzzing. My mom calling to ask what I was making for dinner. My sister texting photos of outfits like she needed my approval to exist. Back then, I thought the Caldwell family was dramatic in the harmless way. Loud laughs. Loud arguments. Loud opinions. I didn't understand that loud families can still be silently cruel. I was 29 when it happened. I had just moved back to the city after a messy breakup and an even messier job situation. I'd taken a new role at a mid-sized nonprofit, ironically the same community space Marissa loved to publicly champion. I worked behind the scenes. Grant writing. Budget reconciliation. Compliance. The unglamorous stuff. The stuff that keeps the lights on. Marissa worked the front. Events. Photos. Donors. Media. She was sunshine on camera. I was the shadow making sure her sunshine didn't bounce off unpaid invoices. We were a team. At least, I believed we were. Until the day my mother called me with a voice that sounded like she'd rehearsed it. Sienna, she said. Are you sitting down? Immediately my stomach tightened. Why? I asked. There was a pause, just long enough for me to feel the shift. Your father is very upset. About what? Another pause. And then she said it. About the money. My hand went cold around my phone. What money? She exhaled like I was exhausting. Don't do this, sweetheart. There it was. That word again, already laced with accusation. I'm not doing anything, I said, confused. What are you talking about? Your sister said you've been borrowing. Borrowing. A word that turns criminal in the wrong mouth. Borrowing from what? I asked, feeling my voice rise. The foundation, Sienna. The foundation. Our nonprofit. The place I worked. The place Marissa represented. The place my father had served on the board for years, mostly as a title and occasionally as a threat. I let out a sharp laugh. Not because it was funny. Because it was impossible. You can't be serious. She said she found inconsistencies. My mother continued. She said the books don't add up. My pulse hammered. I was the one who kept the books. There are no inconsistencies, I said. If there were, I'd know. You always have an answer, she snapped, and I blinked stunned. This wasn't a conversation. This was a verdict being read. Mom, I said carefully. Who told you this? Another pause. Then, like the final nail being tapped into a coffin. Marissa. My throat tightened. Put Dad on the phone. I don't think that's a good. Put him on the phone. I heard muffled voices. Then his familiar heavy breathing. What did you do? He demanded. No greeting. No question. Just accusation already settled in his bones. Nothing, I said. I did nothing. Marissa showed me the report, he said. You've been moving money. Small amounts at first. Then larger. My brain tried to compute. Showed you what report? I asked. Silence. I want to see it, I said. Email it to me. You don't get to make demands, he barked. I swallowed rage. Dad, I said, keeping my tone steady. I literally work in compliance. If there was missing money, the auditors would. Don't insult me, he snapped. You think you're smarter than everyone. No. I thought. I'm just the only one who reads the spreadsheets. Give me 20 minutes, I said. I'll come over. We'll sit down. I'll pull up the system. I'll show you everything. You're not stepping foot in this house, he said. My breath caught. What? You heard me. I stared at the wall in my apartment, suddenly dizzy. You're banning me? I whispered. Until this is sorted, he said. It can be sorted today, I insisted. This is a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, he said, and his voice went colder. It's betrayal. Betrayal. He hung up. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, hearing only the dead air. Then my sister texted me. Marissa, we need to talk. Not by phone. Not by phone. Because by phone, I could record her. Because by phone she might slip. Because Marissa didn't want a conversation. She wanted control. I drove to the foundation anyway. My hands shook the entire way. When I got there, the building was strangely quiet. Too quiet for a weekday. My keycard didn't work. I swiped again. Red light. Again. Red light. I stood there, heart pounding, while people walked past pretending not to see me. Finally, the receptionist, a woman I'd trained, approached with a pained expression. Sienna, she whispered. I'm so sorry. HR said, you can't come in. What? My voice cracked. She glanced around nervously. They said you're on administrative leave. My stomach dropped. Who said that? She swallowed. Marissa. Of course. I stood outside the building in the wind, locked out of my own job like a criminal. Then my phone rang again. It was Layla. What is going on? She blurted. I hadn't even told her yet. How do you know? I asked. She lowered her voice. There's a board emergency meeting happening right now. Your dad's there. Marissa's there. They're saying you. She stopped herself. Say it. I whispered. They're saying you stole money, Layla said. The world narrowed to a sharp point. No. Ibrata. No. This is insane. Layla hesitated. Sienna, there's more. What? She has paperwork, Layla said. She's waving it around like it's proof. I closed my eyes. Because Marissa didn't just lie. She prepared. She printed. She staged. She rehearsed. And the worst part? My family was the perfect audience. Because they'd always wanted a reason to be disappointed in me. I was the quiet one. The sensitive one. The dramatic one. Whenever I objected to being treated like background furniture, Marissa had always been the golden child. And golden children don't get questioned. They get believed. I drove straight to my parents' house anyway. I didn't even park properly. I left my car half crooked in the driveway like an emergency. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I knocked. Finally, the door opened a crack. Not by my mother. By my sister. Marissa stood there in a soft sweater, hair neatly styled, eyes already glossy like she'd been crying. She looked like a victim. I looked like a storm. Sienna, she said softly, please don't make this harder. Isterte her, breath shaking. Harder. I repeated. You just accused me of theft. Her expression flickered, just a hint of satisfaction. Then she replaced it with sadness. I didn't accuse you, she said. I found evidence. Show me, I demanded. Marissa's eyes darted behind her. Dad doesn't want you inside. I want to see the evidence, I said again. She sighed, like I was a child throwing a tantrum, and pulled a folder from behind the door. She held it out like she was offering a Bible. I snatched it and flipped it open. My eyes scanned the page. Transaction logs. Amounts. Dates. Account numbers. It looked official. Too official. My breath caught. Because I recognized the formatting. Not from our accounting software. From a template. A template Marissa had once asked me to build for donor reporting. A template I'd made. For her. I looked up slowly. You made this, I said. Marissa's mouth tightened. Sienna. This isn't from the system, I snapped. This is a report template. Marissa's eyes hardened for 1 second. Then she leaned in close and whispered, sweet as poison. You should have thought of that before you made enemies. My blood turned to ice. Why are you doing this? I asked, voice breaking despite my effort. Her eyes narrowed slightly. And that's when she said the thing that finally cracked the entire puzzle open. Because you never know when to stay in your place. My stomach twisted. This wasn't about money. It wasn't even about the foundation. This was about hierarchy. About Marissa being the star and me being the shadow. About me stepping out of that shadow. Getting a job where I had access, influence, and proof of how she operated. I swallowed hard. You framed me, I whispered. She tilted her head. Framed is such an ugly word. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. You're going to ruin my life, I said. Marissa's gaze flicked over my face, assessing, calculating. Then she sighed like she was bored. No, Sienna, she said quietly. I'm going to remove you. And then the door behind her opened wider. My father stood there, face like stone. He didn't look at me like his daughter. He looked at me like a threat. We're done, he said. My throat tightened. Dad. Don't, he snapped. Don't manipulate me. Manipulate me. When Marissa was standing there holding a folder of lies like a weapon, my mother appeared behind him, eyes wet, lips trembling, performing grief like it was her job. You need help, she whispered. I stared at them. My family. My blood. The people who were supposed to be my safety net. And they were cutting the rope with clean hands. I didn't do this, I said, voice shaking. I swear on everything, I didn't do this. My father's eyes didn't soften. He simply said, leave. Something broke inside me then. Not loudly. Quietly. Like a switch flipping. I held the folder tighter. And for the first time, I realized something terrifying. They didn't want the truth. They wanted the story Marissa gave them. Because it was easier. Because it let them feel righteous. Because it let them punish me without guilt. I nodded once. Okay, I said, voice calm. Marissa blinked, surprised. I think she expected me to beg. I didn't. I turned to leave. And as I stepped off the porch, my mother called after me, voice suddenly sharp. Don't contact us until you're ready to admit what you did. I paused, turned back, and looked at them all. Then I said lightly, almost amused, don't worry. I smiled, small and cold. You'll contact me first. Marissa's face tightened. My father scoffed. My mother rolled her eyes. They didn't understand. Not then. Because back then, I didn't have revenge yet. I had only one thing. A folder full of lies. And a new understanding. If I wanted the truth, I'd have to dig it out myself. So I did. And I kept digging. For years. The first month after they cut me off, I moved like a ghost. I woke up expecting my phone to buzz. It didn't. I made coffee expecting my mother to call. She didn't. I reached for my sister's contact out of habit, like muscle memory. Then I remembered she'd replaced me with silence. It wasn't just emotional. It was practical. Within 2 weeks, I had no job. The foundation terminated me quietly, with language that made it sound mutual. I tried to fight it. But when your own father sits on the board and your sister is the face of the organization, you learn quickly how process becomes a weapon. And the worst part? Nobody asked for my side. Not one person. Not one cousin. Not one aunt. Not one of those family friends who used to pinch my cheeks and say, "You're the smart one." Smart didn't matter. Not when the story was already written. I learned that isolation changes your nervous system. You start hearing betrayal everywhere. Doors closing, laughter outside your window, a group of friends whispering at a bar. You start replaying conversations like they're evidence. You start searching your past for the moment you deserved it. And that's the trap. That's the thing people like Marissa rely on. They don't have to destroy you if they can convince you to destroy yourself. I almost did. I won't romanticize it. There were nights I sat on my kitchen floor with my back against the cabinets, staring at the folder she'd handed me, thinking, if I just disappear, they win. If I fight, I'm alone. Layla kept me alive. Not in a dramatic movie way. In a quiet, relentless way. She showed up with groceries when I'd forgotten to eat. She texted, "Still here?" Every morning. She made jokes at the exact moment my throat tightened. Once when I said, "They really hate me," she snorted and replied, "No, babe. They hate that you're inconvenient." That line stayed with me. Inconvenient. Because the truth was inconvenient. I started working temp jobs. Nothing glamorous. Data entry. Compliance support. Contract audits. The kind of work where nobody cares about your last name, only your accuracy. And slowly, my brain shifted from grief to logic. If Marissa framed me using documents, then she must have access. If she had access, she left fingerprints. People like her are never as careful as they think. They're careful about optics, not details. So I began. At first, it was personal. Late nights, coffee, spreadsheets. I rebuilt the foundation's financial picture from memory. I pulled public filings, Form 990s, annual reports, grant disclosures. I made timelines. I highlighted anomalies. And I discovered something that made my skin prickle. The missing money they accused me of? It wasn't missing. It was moved. Not into my account. Into an account labeled as a youth outreach partner. A partner organization that didn't exist until 3 months before the accusation. A partner organization with no website. No staff. No public presence. And a mailing address that looked familiar. I stared at it until the truth landed. It was a P.O. box. The same P.O. box Marissa used for fan mail back when she ran for a local award. I laughed out loud. Just once. A brittle sound. Because the irony was almost poetic. She'd framed me for stealing money, while she was actually stealing money. I printed everything. Not to show my family. Not yet. Because I'd learned a crucial rule. If you bring the truth too early, they call it drama. You have to bring it when they have no choice but to listen. I needed more. Proof that wasn't just interesting. Proof that was fatal. So I got smarter. I stopped being the wounded sister. I became the woman who could dismantle a lie like it was a machine. I took courses. Forensic accounting basics. Digital records preservation. Whistleblower procedures. Employment law. Not because I wanted a new career. Because I wanted a weapon that didn't look like one. I also did something else. Something Marissa never expected from me. I got visible. Not publicly. Not on Instagram. Legally. Professionally. I joined a compliance firm. A good one. And within a year, I'd built a reputation as the woman you brought in when someone was hiding something. The joke in my office was that I could smell a fake invoice from across the street. They were right. I was trained by Betrayal. Meanwhile, from a distance, I watched Marissa. Her career flourished. Her smile broadened. She won awards. She gave speeches. She posted photos with captions like "grateful for the journey." Once, Layla sent me a screenshot of Marissa's Instagram story. It was a quote in delicate cursive. "Let go of what no longer serves you." I stared at it and laughed until I had tears in my eyes. Because apparently, I was what no longer served her. Then, 2 years into my silence, the universe handed me the first true gift. Layla got promoted. She became senior events and operations at the foundation, which meant she now had access to internal systems. And unlike my family, Layla didn't just believe me. She wanted blood. Not literally, calm down. But emotionally? Oh, she was ready. One night, she came over with her laptop, eyes bright. "I found it," she whispered. "Found what?" I asked, heart pounding. She turned the screen toward me. A set of emails. Marissa's emails. With the partner organization. The fake one. An email chain where Marissa literally wrote, "We need to clean this up before audits. Make sure the transfers look like program expenses." I stared. My fingers went numb. Layla scrolled. More emails. More instructions. More proof. Then Layla leaned back and whispered, almost reverently, "She did it." I swallowed hard. "Yes," I said. "She did." Layla looked at me. "So why don't you take this to the police?" And that was the moment I realized something even darker than the fraud. If I went to the police, it would become a case. A process. A long, messy, unpredictable process. Marissa would spin it. My family would circle the wagons. They would become victims again. And even if I won legally, I would lose emotionally, because I'd still be the problem in their story. No. I didn't want a courtroom win. I wanted a moral collapse. I wanted them to feel what I felt. The confusion. The isolation. The slow terror of realizing nobody is coming to defend you. So I did the hardest thing. I waited. For the perfect moment. And it came disguised as an invitation. Layla forwarded it to me on a random Tuesday morning. Subject line. Gala of Gratitude. Keynote confirmed. Attached. The program. Marissa as keynote speaker. Theme. Forgiveness. Family. Community. I stared at the word forgiveness until I wanted to throw my phone. Then I smiled. Because the universe had just handed me a stage. A microphone. And an audience full of people who adored her. People who would never believe me if I whispered. But might believe me if I proved it. So I texted Layla one word. Tonight. She replied instantly. Oh babe. We're going to ruin her. And that's how the plan began. Not with rage. With choreography. We mapped the venue. We checked security. We figured out who controlled the screen. We built the presentation like it was a documentary. Date stamps. Audio clips. Emails. Bank transfers. Not just Marissa is bad. But Marissa is a fraud. And we built one more thing too. A trap. Because exposing Marissa wasn't enough. I needed my family to do what they always did. React, deny, blame me. I needed them to show the room exactly who they were. So I could finally stop wondering if I was crazy. And tonight, in that ballroom, as the screen displayed her voicemail transcript, I watched Marissa's polished mask crack. But the real moment, the moment I'd been waiting years for, wasn't her panic. It was my father's. Because as the crowd buzzed and Marissa trembled, I saw my father's eyes flick toward the exit like he wanted to run. And I realized something. He knew more than he ever admitted. Which meant this revenge wasn't just about Marissa. It was about the entire family machine that had chewed me up and called it righteousness. The screen behind Marissa shifted again. And this time it wasn't a message. It was a recording. An audio clip queued up with one simple title. What Marissa said about me, the night they cut me off. Marissa lunged for the technician. Layla blocked her. The crowd leaned in. And then Marissa's voice filled the ballroom speakers. Clear, unmistakable. And smiling as she said, I mean, if she disappears, it'll be easier for everyone. The room went dead. Even the air felt stunned. And in that silence I thought, now they have to feel it. When you watch someone's reputation die in real time, it doesn't look like fireworks. It looks like blinking. It looks like people leaning toward each other, whispering. It looks like a woman in a white dress losing her balance because the ground beneath her has turned to glass. Marissa stood at the podium, mouth open, eyes wide, like her brain couldn't accept that her own voice had betrayed her. My mother made a sound like a wounded bird. My father didn't move at all. He just stared at the stage with the blankness of a man watching a dam crack. The MC tried to laugh. Oh wow. Okay. Seems like we have a technical. But the crowd wasn't laughing. They were staring. Because the recording didn't sound like a misunderstanding. It sounded like intent. And intent is what destroys a narrative. Marissa snapped into motion. She leaned into the mic, forcing a smile so hard it looked painful. Everyone, she said, voice shaking. This is an attack. Someone is trying to sabotage me. She glanced down at me. And for a split second, I saw it, the pure hatred. Not fear. Not regret. Hatred. Because I wasn't supposed to come back. I was supposed to stay gone, and let her enjoy the life she'd stolen. I stepped forward until the edge of the stage was right in front of my toes. Then I said calmly, tell them why. Marissa's smile faltered. What? She whispered. Tell them why you did it. I repeated louder. The room hushed again. Marissa laughed, thin, brittle. I don't know what she's talking about, she said. She's unwell. Ah. There it was. The classic. When the truth corners you, make the truth teller the villain. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said, and let a little humor cut through. So I'm unwell, but you're the one whose voicemail is playing like Spotify. A few startled laughs broke out. Not many, but enough. Marissa's eyes flashed. Layla hit the next slide. A screenshot of an email thread. Subject: Program transfers. From Marissa Caldwell. To Partner Organization email. The body text was highlighted in yellow. Not all of it. Just the one sentence that mattered. If she asks questions, we'll say it was her. She's always been unstable. The room erupted. That word, unstable, sparked like gasoline. Because now it wasn't just about fraud. It was about premeditation. About cruelty. About a plan. My mother stood up so fast her chair toppled. Sienna, she cried, voice trembling, please. Please stop this. Stop this. Again. Always stop the truth, not the lie. I looked at her. And for a moment, the girl I used to be rose up in my throat. The one who wanted to scream, why didn't you love me enough to ask? But instead, I asked a different question. Where were you, I said, when I was sitting alone on Christmas Eve, watching your Instagram story of you all clinking glasses? My mother's face twisted. We didn't know. You didn't want to know, I corrected. My father finally moved. He stepped forward, voice low and dangerous. This is not the place. I smiled slightly. It wasn't the place when you threw me out either, I said. But you managed. Gasps. My father's hands clenched. Marissa's gaze darted around the room, searching for an escape route. Then she tried the one thing she always did when cornered. She changed the subject. Okay, she said quickly, voice sweet again. Let's talk about what this really is. Sienna has always been jealous of me. There it was. The oldest trick. Make it petty. Make it sibling rivalry. Make it she's just bitter. I tilted my head. Jealous. I repeated, as if considering it. Marissa, I'm not jealous. I looked her up and down. I'm horrified. A sharp laugh burst out from someone near the back. Marissa's face reddened. You're doing this because you want attention, she snapped. I nodded thoughtfully. Sure, I said. But here's the thing. I stepped closer. I'm not the one who built my entire life on lies. I'm just the one holding up the mirror. Layla hit the next slide. Bank records. Amounts. Dates. Transfers. Everything. It was so clear even the donors at the front table, people who barely understood how to open a PDF, could see the pattern. The room filled with a low roar. Donors murmured. Board members whispered. Phones came out. People started recording. Marissa looked like she might vomit. And that's when my father did something I didn't expect. He stepped up onto the stage. Not toward me. Toward Marissa. He took the microphone from her hand like a man taking back control. Everyone, he said, voice authoritative, the voice he used when he wanted rooms to obey him. There is clearly confusion here. This will be investigated. We ask you to respect. Respect. I cut in sharp. He turned toward me. His eyes were hard. Not another word, Sienna. I stared at him. My father. The man who should have protected me. The man who had treated me like damage. And suddenly, I understood why he was doing this. He wasn't trying to protect Marissa. He was trying to protect himself. Because if Marissa fell, the questions wouldn't stop at her. They'd crawl up the ladder. Right to the board. Right to him. And I had planned for that too. Because Layla wasn't the only friend I made in 5 years. I had another. His name was Jonah. A quiet compliance officer the foundation hired last year. The kind of man who speaks rarely but listens like a blade. He was standing near the back now, holding his phone up, recording. And Jonah wasn't just watching. He was waiting. Because earlier that afternoon, I'd sent him an email with one attachment. A full dossier. Everything. And a message that said, if they try to bury this, you'll know it wasn't an accident. My father tightened his grip on the mic. This event is over, he announced. Marissa's face flashed with relief. My mother grabbed Marissa's arm like she was saving her from a cliff. The crowd started shifting, confused. And then Jonah walked forward. He didn't shout. He didn't demand. He simply raised his voice enough to cut through the noise. I'm Jonah Wells, he said. Compliance officer for the foundation. Heads turned. My father's eyes narrowed. Jonah continued, calm as ice. And I just want to confirm something for the room. He held up his phone. I have already forwarded all documentation shown here tonight to our external auditors and to the state charity regulator. The room exploded again. Marissa staggered backward. My mother gasped. My father's face went white. Because now it wasn't a scandal. It was an investigation. And investigations don't care about family narratives. They care about records. My father looked at me, eyes blazing, and for the first time in 5 years, he said the sentence I didn't know I'd needed to hear. What do you want? Not an apology. Not love. A negotiation. I smiled faintly. Funny, I said. That's the first time you've asked me what I want. My father's jaw clenched. Marissa suddenly lunged toward the edge of the stage, eyes wild. Sienna, she pleaded, voice cracking. Please, please stop. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry. Now. When the room was watching. When the consequences were real. I looked at her, my heart doing something strange. Not softening. Hardening into clarity. You're not sorry, I said quietly. You're scared. Marissa sobbed. Real tears this time. The room watched hungry. And that's when I realized something that hurt worse than anger. They weren't begging for me. They were begging for the performance to end. They wanted the discomfort to stop. They wanted their evening back. My mother reached toward me with trembling hands. Sienna, she whispered, we can talk. We can fix this. Just come home. Home. As if home hadn't been the place that exiled me. As if home wasn't a weapon. I looked at my mother's face, and for a moment, I saw something like genuine fear. But it wasn't fear of losing me. It was fear of losing their image. Their standing. Their control. My father stepped down from the stage, came toward me, voice low. Please, he said, and the word looked unnatural on him. Not like this. Not like this. As if there was a kinder way to resurrect someone you buried alive. I leaned in slightly and whispered, so only he could hear. You taught me silence. His eyes widened. I continued, softer. And Marissa taught me what to do with it. Then I straightened and addressed the room. You all came here to hear about forgiveness, I said. So here's the lesson. I pointed to my family. Forgiveness is not something you demand from the person you destroyed. The room was still. And revenge, I added with a small smile, is not always loud. I looked at Marissa, trembling on stage. Sometimes, I said, it's just well-timed. Then I turned and walked away. Not because it was over, but because the next part wasn't about humiliating them in public. The next part was about making them understand the cost of erasing me. And I had one final twist saved. One that would make them beg. Not for their reputations. For my mercy. The next morning, my phone did what it hadn't done in 5 years. It lit up like a Christmas tree. Missed calls. Voicemails. Texts. My mother. My father. My aunt. My cousin. Even my brother, who hadn't spoken to me since Marissa warned him I was dangerous. The messages were a symphony of panic. Mom, please call me. Please. Dad, we need to talk. Immediately. Marissa. Sienna, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Aunt Renee, baby, this is getting out of hand. Come over. Brother. What the hell is happening? I listened to my mother's voicemail twice. Not because I enjoyed it. Because I needed to hear it with adult ears. Her voice shook. Sienna, sweetheart, please, we didn't know, we were misled, just come home. Misled. That word. The little linguistic trick people use when they don't want to admit they chose. I didn't call back. Not yet. Because part 5, the final part, was never meant to be a screaming match. It was meant to be a reckoning. A slow one. A quiet one. The kind that changes the shape of a family forever. By noon, the foundation issued a statement online. Allegations. Concern. Investigation. Marissa's keynote photo was removed from the website. By evening, donors were pulling out. By the next day, the board called an emergency meeting. And here's the thing about chaos. People reveal their real loyalties when the lights go out. Layla called me. You were right, she said, voice tight. About what? I asked. She exhaled. Your dad. He's panicking. Not because of Marissa. Because of himself. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? Layla hesitated. He's asking IT to pull logs. He's asking legal what they can contain. He's calling donors personally. He's not asking what happened. He's asking, how do we survive? I closed my eyes. Because suddenly, that glance toward the exit at the gala made sense. He wasn't surprised by the fraud. He was surprised it was public. I drove to Layla's office that night. We sat with coffee and adrenaline, scrolling through emails and files. And then Layla opened a folder she hadn't seen before. A hidden folder inside Marissa's archive. She stared at the screen. Sienna, she whispered. You need to see this. I leaned in. A document. Not a report. Not an invoice. A private agreement. A contract between the foundation and the fake partner organization. Signed by Marissa. And signed by my father. My breath left my body. My father's name sat there in black ink like a confession. Dad signed this. I whispered. Layla nodded slowly. He wasn't just fooled. He was involved. My hands shook. Not from fear. From the strange, violent grief of confirmation. Because there's always that tiny part of you, even after betrayal, that wants to believe your parent wouldn't. That they couldn't. But they can. And they did. I stared at the document until my vision blurred. This wasn't just Marissa's crime. It was a family enterprise. A machine. And I had been the scapegoat. The disposable daughter. The one they could throw under the bus to keep their golden child clean. And now the bus was reversing. I stood up. Layla grabbed my wrist. What are you going to do? She asked. I looked at her. And the answer surprised even me. I'm going to disappear again, I said. Layla blinked. What? I nodded calm. I'm going to go silent. Layla frowned. Sienna, they're already spiraling. You've won. I smiled slightly. No, I said. I've started. Because I had learned something about my family. They didn't fear consequences. They feared uncertainty. They feared not knowing what I was going to do next. So I did the most damaging thing possible. I stopped responding. For 3 days I didn't answer a single call. Not one. I let them marinate in dread. I let them imagine what I might do. Police. Press. Lawsuits. Public documents. More recordings. More screens. More rooms full of witnesses. On the 4th day, my father showed up at my apartment. He had never been there. Because he'd never cared where I lived after they cut me off. I watched him through the peephole. He looked older. Smaller. And for a fleeting second, my heart tried to soften. Then I remembered the signature. I opened the door, chain still latched. His eyes flicked over my face like he couldn't believe I was real. Sienna, he said, voice rough. Please. Please. Again. I leaned against the doorframe. What do you want? I asked. He swallowed. Your mother is, he stopped. She's not well. I waited. He continued, voice breaking slightly. Marissa is falling apart. The regulators are coming. The auditors. Donors are calling. The press is sniffing. He looked at me like I was a judge. And maybe I was. He swallowed again. We need you to stop, he said. I stared at him. And then I laughed softly. It wasn't joyful. It was incredulous. You cut me off for years, I said. You erased me. And now you're asking me to stop existing loudly. He flinched. I made a mistake, he whispered. I raised an eyebrow. Which one? He looked down. That silence was answer enough. Then he said the sentence that finally revealed the real reason he was here. If this comes out, I could lose everything. There it was. Not I'm sorry. Not I miss you. Not I was wrong. Just, I could lose everything. I tilted my head. And what did I lose? I asked quietly. My father's face tightened. Sienna. No, I said. Answer me. He looked away. And I felt something inside me go perfectly still. Because that was the moment I understood. They weren't begging for forgiveness because they loved me. They were begging because they were desperate. And desperation makes people finally say your name. I unlatched the chain and opened the door fully. My father blinked, surprised. I stepped back. "Come in," I said. He entered like a man walking into court. We sat at my small kitchen table, the table my family had never eaten at. The silence was heavy. Then I slid a folder across the table. Not the original life folder. A new one. My father stared at it. "What is this?" he asked. "My terms," I said. He swallowed. I leaned forward. "First," I said, "you're going to publicly retract the accusations that were made against me. In writing. On the Foundation's site. And you will send it to every donor, every board member, every staff member." My father's eyes widened. "That could." "Second," I continued, "you're going to resign from the board. Effective immediately." His mouth opened. I held up a hand. "Third," I said, voice colder, "Marissa is going to admit what she did. Not privately. Not to me. Publicly." My father's hands trembled. "That will destroy her." I smiled faintly. "She destroyed me," I replied. "I survived." He stared at me. "And in exchange," he said carefully, "you'll what?" I exhaled. And here came the final twist, the one that made this revenge complete. "I'm not taking you to court," I said. My father's shoulders sagged with relief. "But," I added, "I'm also not saving you." His relief evaporated. He frowned. "What does that mean?" It meant this. I wasn't doing this for money. I wasn't doing this to become the new Marissa. I was doing this to reclaim my name, my story, my peace. And I had already done that. But there was one last thing I wanted. The thing no lawsuit could ever guarantee. I wanted them to understand what they had done. So I leaned forward and said, "You're going to tell me the truth." My father blinked. "What truth?" I held his gaze. "Why?" I said. "Was it so easy for you to believe I stole?" His jaw tightened. Because I was convenient? I cut in. Because I was quiet? Because Marissa was loud? Because you needed someone to blame and I fit? My father's eyes filled. And for the first time, I saw something that looked like real shame. He swallowed hard. Then he whispered, "Yes." One word. And it landed like an earthquake. "Yes." He continued, voice cracking. "It was easier," he admitted. "Marissa, she's always been. He couldn't say it. So I did. "Greedy," I offered. He flinched. "Ambitious," he muttered. I laughed softly. "That's a polite word for it." He looked at me broken. "I didn't think you'd come back," he whispered. And that sentence, the honesty in it, hurt more than the fraud. Because it confirmed the deepest wound. They didn't just cut me off. They assumed I'd stay gone. They assumed I'd accept my erasure as permanent. I stared at him for a long moment. Then I stood up. And I said the line I'd been carrying for 5 years. "I didn't come back for you," I said. He blinked. "I came back for me." My father's voice shook. "Santa, please. Tell me what to do." I looked at him. And the answer came clear and simple. "Beg," I said. He stared at me, stunned. I tilted my head. "You wanted me to admit what I didn't do," I said. "Now you're going to admit what you did." His face crumpled. Tears slid down his cheeks. He swallowed his pride and whispered, "I'm sorry." Not for the fraud. Not for the scandal. For the silence. For the erasure. For the years. And I believed him, just enough to know he meant it now. But here's the truth no one tells you about revenge. It doesn't heal you. It reveals you. It shows you who you became in order to survive. I walked to the window and stared out at the street. Cars passed. People lived their lives. My father's voice trembled behind me. "Can you ever forgive us?" I turned back slowly. And I gave him the only answer that was honest. "I don't know," I said. He looked like he might collapse. But I continued. "What I do know," I said, "is that you will never erase me again." I picked up my phone. Opened a draft email. The one I'd written years ago and never sent. A letter to the Foundation board. A letter to the auditors. A letter to the regulator. I'd held it like a loaded gun. Now I didn't need to fire it. Not yet. Because the power wasn't in pulling the trigger. It was in them knowing I could. I looked at my father. These are my terms, I said. You meet them, or I press send. He nodded, shaking. I will, he whispered. And that was it. That was the moment my silent revenge reached its final form. Not destruction. Control. The kind of control they'd taken from me. The kind I'd earned back through patience, pain, and precision. As my father left, he turned at the door. Sienna, he whispered, voice small. I missed you. I stared at him. And for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of humor that wasn't bitter. I tilted my head and said, that's funny. He blinked. You never noticed. Then I closed the door. And in the quiet that followed, I realized something. They begged forgiveness. But I didn't give it. Not because I was cruel. Because forgiveness is not an apology you hand out like a gift. It's something that grows when the soil is real. And for the first time in years, the soil finally was. I sat at my table, opened my laptop, and began writing. Not another revenge plan. Not another dossier. A story. My story. Because the ultimate revenge wasn't ruining Marissa. Or humiliating my parents. Or watching them beg. The ultimate revenge was this. I existed anyway. And this time, I did it out loud. Please click the subscribe button, like, share, and comment. This will encourage me to make more interesting stories. Also, let's know where you are watching from. Thank you and see you in the next story.